Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Sarah Wong. Our top stories tonight. New COVID cases in lockdown Shanghai hit a record of over 13,000. Virus-related deaths in Hong Kong dropped to a 5-week low. And Ukraine demands justice for crimes against civilians, while Russia denies killing non-combatants. The Omicron wave sweeping Shanghai shows no sign of receding as new daily cases rose past 13,000 in the lockdown megacity. Stringent measures drew increasingly loud grumbles from residents. COVID infections soared to a new high in Shanghai as Omicron continued to bring China's largest city to its knees. The mainland's financial hub reported more than 13,000 asymptomatic cases and 268 infections with symptoms yesterday. More than 25 million residents completed the first round of mass testing in just one day. The rising caseload prompted a full lockdown to be extended indefinitely. All public transport remained grounded, and residents told to stay home. Netizens complained of an acute shortage of vegetables and delivery workers, despite government promises to ensure steady supplies. Authorities are also under fire for separating infected children from their COVID-free parents. Tension simmered on the front lines with workers in hazmat suits caught on tape beating a woman who allegedly tried to escape quarantine. Quarrels broke out after an overworked medical team was barred from leaving for failing to administer enough COVID tests. Some netizens criticized the dynamic zero COVID policy as politicizing science. Others blamed Shanghai's outbreak for jeopardizing China's pandemic response. Meanwhile, a mutation of the Omicron variant unseen in other parts of the world was detected in neighboring Suzhou. Overall, the mainland added over 15,000 asymptomatic cases yesterday. More than 1,100 symptomatic infections were also registered, including nearly 800 in the northeastern province of Jilin. In Hong Kong, new COVID cases have stayed below 5,000 for the 4th day running, while virus-related deaths have fallen. 2 airlines have been banned from flying in from Manchester and Doha after carrying 3 or more passengers who were detected with the virus at the airport. Macy Mock reports.
New COVID infections in Hong Kong rose slightly from yesterday to 3,254, staying below 5,000 for the 4th day in a row. There was also an increase in imported cases. 14 of them were detected at the airports. The government banned 2 flights for a week from tomorrow as they brought in 3 or more passengers who were found with the virus. They are Cathay Pacific's flights from Manchester and Qatar Airways flights from Doha. Albert Au from the Center for Health Protection says a rise in imported cases was expected after the lifting of a flight ban from 9 countries. He also urged the public to stay vigilant as COVID caseload remains high. With Easter coming soon after today's Ching Ming holiday, he cautioned people to avoid crowded places. The authorities reported an 87 additional deaths, including that of 6 people who died earlier. The fatality toll so far in the 5th wave is over 8,000, with the death rates at 0.7%. The Center for Health Protection said its grief support hotline will remain open until the end of this month to help those who have lost loved ones to COVID. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
Representatives of 6 religions in Hong Kong have marked Ching Ming Festival by mourning for those killed by COVID.
During this 5th wave of COVID infection, the people are suffering a lot, and especially for those who lost their beloved one. We have to act with the patience, and we have to be persons of understanding, that we have to understand the situation, and we hope that this situation will be finish very soon.
In his video, Catholic Bishop Stephen Chow said the pandemic was a reminder for people to cherish their family and friends. There were also speeches from Buddhist, Confucian, Christian, and Taoist representatives. Chief Executive Carrie Lam thanked the religious leaders for their videos and said the large number of deaths has been heartbreaking. Arrangements have been made for students who are unable to complete their Diploma of Secondary Education exam papers while they're isolated in Penny's Bay. Candidates affected by the virus will be allowed to sit for the exam at the isolation center. More from Macy Mock.
Education authorities have mapped out a contingency plan for COVID-infected students who are unable to continue their university entrance exam that begins later this month. Form 6 students who contract the virus or close contacts can sit for their Diploma of Secondary Education exam at the Penny's Bay Isolation Facility, which will have 1,000 slots for candidates. Director of Public Examinations Ricardo Mack told RTHK that if a candidate feels unwell after taking one paper and is unable to finish other papers in the same subject, the grade will be based on the completed paper. Candidates taking the exams in Penny's Bay will be observed by invigilators through a monitor. Invigilators will also be deployed outside the rooms in case students need assistance. Po Shing, a student's guidance consultant at the Hock Yao Club, welcomed the arrangements, saying this will give students a chance to get the highest grade of 5-star through their own efforts instead of a maximum level 5 through an assessment. He suggested that candidates affected by the virus consult their teachers to decide whether to take their exams in Penny's Bay or depend on an assessment of their school academic records for their final grades. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
Beijing's liaison office is set to meet a group of election committee members tomorrow, according to sources. Some members, including Horace Cheng and Zhou Chen, went to the office today to take a bottle for COVID test samples ahead of the meeting, which sources say will cover next month's chief executive election. Meanwhile, Chief Secretary John Lee, who is tipped to join the race to succeed Carrie Lam, has avoided the press for the third day in a row. Overseas, Russia has denied killing civilians in the Ukrainian town of Bucha. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who visited the town, vowed to hold the killers accountable. Flanked by soldiers and senior officials, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky waded through the debris littered on the streets of Bucha. The small town near the capital Kyiv is where hundreds of Ukrainians were found dead after Russian forces withdrew last week. In his first venture outside Kyiv since the Russian invasion nearly 6 weeks ago, Zelensky vowed to help everyone in Bucha and hold the culprits accountable for crimes committed against Ukraine. Moscow denied that its troops massacred civilians in Bucha and accused Kyiv and the West of spewing propaganda.
Not a single local resident has suffered from any violent action. For as long as the town was under the control of the Russian armed forces, the video circulated by the Kyiv regime is a crude forgery. It doesn't stand any scrutiny. However,
Nebenzia said the scenes in Bucha were staged by the Ukrainians after Russian forces left. But satellite images taken during the Russian occupation purported to show corpses on the streets, contradicting Moscow's claims. Ukraine's top diplomat, meanwhile, warned that the situation in the besieged southern port city of Mariupol will worsen. Dmytro Kuleba urged Western countries to impose fresh and tougher sanctions on Russia.
This is not the request of Ukraine's foreign minister. This is the plea of the victims of rape, torture, and killings, their relatives, and the entire Ukrainian nation.
The United States argued that Moscow should be deprived of a seat on the United Nations Human Rights Council. Sri Lanka's finance minister has resigned just one day after his appointment, dealing a blow to the embattled president Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Ali Sabri quit as the island nation's political and economic crises worsened. More than 40 lawmakers also left Rajapaksa's coalition government amid growing calls for his resignation. But the president, who has been accused of nepotism and mishandling the economy, has refused to step down. Anti-government unrest rocked Sri Lanka in recent days, with people outraged over shortages of fuel, food, and other necessities. Pakistan's top court has resumed a hearing on Prime Minister Imran Khan's controversial move in blocking an opposition bid to oust him. Hundreds of Khan's supporters rallied in the capital, Islamabad, last night to support his attempt to stay in power. He had been expected to lose a motion of no confidence last Sunday, but the deputy speaker, who belongs to his party, threw out the motion. Khan then dissolved parliament. The move created a constitutional crisis, which Pakistanis hope the Supreme Court will resolve. Workers at a New York warehouse run by U.S. e-commerce giant Amazon have made history by voting to form a union to fight for their rights.
This really is the most important union victory in 100 years. And, symbols are really important when it comes to unions and it comes to organizing. People will before thought to Amazon and Starbucks, but particularly Amazon, they really thought that Amazon was invincible. And they don't believe that anymore, and they think if you can win at Amazon, you can win anywhere.
Staff at the Staten Island warehouse celebrated their victory. The Amazon labor union, which they endorsed, demanded talks with the largest e-commerce firm on employment terms. Members hope other Amazon workers across the United States will join them to fight for better conditions. Fewer people than usual visited cemeteries across the city today to sweep the graves of their ancestors. Many stayed away during the Ching Ming holiday because of social distancing measures. Johanna Chen reports.
A handful of grave sweepers turned up at the Diamond Hill Urn Cemetery this morning to honor their ancestors. With the city still observing stringent anti-COVID measures, people kept their masks on. Signs were placed around the area warning visitors to protect themselves by not using sanitizers while burning offerings. With the current gathering ban capped at 2 people, some families split up in pairs, while others just ignored the rules. This woman said 8 members of her family did not visit the cemetery this year. She added they found it difficult to work out arrangements around the 2-person gathering rule. Family members had to keep apart while on their way to the cemetery and were unable to eat together after, as they used to in previous years. Smoke and fumes from incense and offerings seem to be getting less each year, according to those present. This family noted there used to be rows of people gathered in the area, but today they were the only ones. They estimated there were 80% fewer visitors at the cemetery compared to last year. But this woman noted that it's the thought that counts, whether people are out and about commemorating or staying home. Prices for offerings jumped from last year, with sellers saying many postponed grave sweeping because of the pandemic. At the same time, items needed for graveside rituals were limited because transport from the mainland has slowed down. Johanna Chan, HKIBC.
On to the weather now. Tomorrow will be mainly fine and dry. Temperatures range between 19 and 28 degrees. Don't forget your sunscreen when going out, as it will be hot and dry on Thursday and Friday. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world.
That's our main news for this Tuesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Sarah Wong. Please stay safe and take care.